If the idea of moving abroad scares you or makes you nervous, then you are not alone. Because, see, you've lived in an environment for 20, 30, 40 years or more with your friends, your family members, and now you just decide to leave it all behind. Well, that can be a little daunting. So, in today's video, I want to share some of the 7 most common fears when it comes to moving abroad and how we can overcome these fears. I usually like to give a little bit of tough love, but for today's video, I want to soften up a little bit and not just tell you to just suck it up and go and do it, but we're going to approach strategies in order for you to kind of diminish those fears and give you the courage to still reach your goal of moving abroad. So the first fear that is very common that you hear about is the fear of leaving family behind. And this is something that comes with a little bit of guilt, a little bit of survival guilt or remorse because you feel like you're leaving people behind, people that you love. And mostly if the reasons why you are moving abroad is to better your life, well, automatically the idea of leaving people behind is that you're leaving them in a life that is not getting better, right? So there's a little bit of guilt associated with that. So how do you overcome this fear? Let me give you an example of how I personally experienced that fear, but in a different context. That was in academia when I left my job as a college professor. So one of the major fears that I had was to leave my students behind because I felt like I was abandoning them. I felt like I was letting the university down and all of that. So my mind couldn't really conceive the idea of living because I felt a lot of guilt. But then when you deconstruct the whole idea and you feel like, you know what? They can hire somebody else like a week after I leave. And two, my students will still graduate even if I leave. And also, the university is going to be just fine, even if they lose a faculty member. And so once I was made aware of those facts, those real things, well, you know what? It was just easier to leave because I realized that me leaving didn't mean abandoning people and it didn't mean that their lives was going to be worse because I was leaving. Yes, there's going to be a big hole because I'm not there, but that doesn't mean that they're automatically going to suffer. So when you make that shift in your head, you're giving yourself permission to have a better life without meaning that other people's life will get worse. Does that make sense? In the same way, the second fear is to not allow grandparents to have time with their grandchildren. So if you're moving with your kids, then the grandparents are probably going to be like, well, you're taking my babies and all of that. And again, you're going to feel some guilt about it. The good news is that they can still come visit and you can still come back and visit as well. So it's not because you're living that, all of a sudden they cannot see their grandbabies anymore. I know that is hard, mostly if you are moving really, really far from the US, but there's still ways that you can connect grandparents and grandkids, whether it's on Zoom or on social media, any kind of platform that can help them stay connected or just simply over the phone. And also, if you have siblings with children, well, that means that they can still enjoy the presence of their other grandkids and not just having to hold your kids hostage because they want to be close to your children. So I understand it's the case for me as well. Just because they want to hold on to their grandchildren, and which is a great thing to have, that doesn't mean that it should nullify or eliminate any kind of plan that you may have with your spouse and your children. Okay, so it can be difficult, but at the same time, when you remember the big reason why you want to move abroad, at the end, the benefits outweigh the inconveniences. Number 3, the third fear that you may have about moving abroad is not liking it at the destination. If you feel like you're not going to be able to adapt, well, that will be a problem. I recently watched one video from Aging Gracefully about the reasons why expats leave Mexico. And one of the reasons why, because they cannot adapt to the language, the culture, and all of that. And having that fear of not being able to adapt is normal, okay? Because you're going to a new environment. So it's going to be a different culture and maybe it's even going to be a different language. So you will need a time to adapt. And more than likely, your kids are going to adapt faster than you because again, you've lived 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years in a specific culture and now all of a sudden you're being forced to adapt to a new culture. Even if it's a culture that is a little similar to the American culture, like maybe going to England, for example. Same language, sometimes the food is similar, but if you're going to a country with a culture that is really different, like maybe going to Southeast Asia or going to Central Africa or other parts of South America where you will have to speak Spanish or Portuguese, well, then it can be a little more challenging. So how do you overcome this fear? First thing you can do, and I mentioned that in another video, is to start learning the language. If the language is different, absolutely make sure that you start learning it right now here before you leave. Second thing that you can do is also to be able to familiarize yourself with that culture. So going to their festivals, going to any kind of cultural event that they may have locally, being able to immerse yourself in those festivals so that you get an understanding of norms, you get an understanding of, flavors of the food and things like that. And also watching content from local creators. So it's not just about Americans living there, like expat content, but also content from local creators. That way you can get a sense of what people eat, how people cook, things like that might be different from how we do it here in the US. And another way to overcome the fear of not adapting and not making friends is to engage in Facebook groups. That way you can make friends here and now before you go there, so that way you will have a group of people, whether they're expats or mixed or local groups, with people that you can actually start interacting with as soon as you get there. The fourth fear, and I just mentioned that when I spoke about the culture, is specifically language, not being able to speak the language, and that being a problem that will affect your daily life. So if you have to depend on translation apps, or if you have to depend on other people to be able to live your daily life, like going to the store and things like that, then it's going to be very difficult for you. So you have to understand how hard will it be for you if people don't understand English, or if you're not able to communicate in the local language. Are your daily activities going to be affected by that? So if you're going to, let's say, France, for example, you can find a lot of people who speak English, even though not all French people speak English, right? So although it's going to make your experience a little difficult, it's still not going to be a deal breaker if you're also making the effort to learn French. But if you're going to a town where most people don't speak English, then it's going to be a lot harder for you to adapt if you are not making a lot of progress in learning the local language. Number 5, this is always a fear that is mentioned by all content creators talking about moving abroad, and that's running out of money. Running out of money is a major fear, okay? And so how do you overcome that fear? Well, one, make sure you don't run out of money, okay? Easier said than done. How do we do that? Make sure you have savings, but make sure you don't count on only savings. Make sure that you have money coming in regularly every single month through investments, through your pension, retirement, or through your online businesses if you have an online business, or a local business if you have that already established, or through a job, whether it's a remote job or a job that you have at your destination, okay? Do not just rely on your savings. And also, I would recommend you not to only rely on a job, whether it's a remote job or an assignment or anything like that, because things can happen. If they happen when you're here and you get fired, well, you can find another job really fast. You don't have to move back or anything like that. You're already here. But if you're abroad with your family and you get fired, you're stuck there with all of your things and with your family and all of that. And that's not a situation you want to put yourself in. So make sure you secure different income streams, and more than likely one that doesn't depend on an employer. So something that can come in every single month to you, regardless of if you have a job or not, okay? Number 6 is loneliness, okay? Loneliness, if you're an introvert like me, maybe you enjoy your time alone, but you can still feel homesick and feel like you're not making friends. So how do you overcome this fear? Well, you're going to have to make the effort to plug into certain groups. Make sure you get involved with hobbies and activities. Make sure you can connect with other expats if that's something that you want to do. Make sure that you make new friends, and it's something that you have to make the effort into. That is not going to just fall on your lap. It's not like you're 10 years old at school and then you just automatically make friends. It's harder to make friends as adults, and so you're going to have to put in the effort. If you're single, how about going to networking events? Even if it's to strike a conversation with other parents that are dropping off the kids at school, and going to coffee shops and interacting with other moms at moms groups, church groups, or anything like that, that will allow you to feel less lonely and to adapt more in your new life. The last fear that is one of the most popular is when it comes to your own safety. So being aware of your surrounding is something that you always have to do regardless of where you live, but more so if you are in a different environment that you're not familiar with yet. So before you move, make sure you connect with other expats in Facebook groups. That way they can give you advice on neighborhoods that are safe for you to live in. And again, make sure you use your common sense, okay? That's something that you have to do anyways. So for all the fears that I've mentioned here, whether it's loneliness, not being able to speak the language, running out of money, or anything like that. The main advice on how to overcome those fears is for you to do your research. For everything, do your research. And sometimes research is not enough. So the next step would be for you to go on a scouting trip. So that way you'll get a better sense of the environment, the vibe, and see if you really like it there, if you can see yourself there. That's something that you can do by yourself, or you can go with your family as well. And remember that during your scouting trip, you're not there as a tourist, but you're trying to get a sense of life there as an expat or even as a local. That way you can see the reality of life there, not just the facade, but how real life is like over there. And of course, connect with people who are there already, whether they're locals or expats as well. Make sure you get to connect with them before you leave. Have that community before you leave. So again, research, explore, and connect all the time. That will allow you to diminish the fears that you have. Fears are normal, and you might not be able to get rid of all the fears. The point is for you to acknowledge the fear and being able to learning new things, to be bold and to do it in spite of the fear, to have the courage to still go in spite of these fears that we talked about today. So I would love to hear back from you. Let me know in the comments which one of these 7 fears is the one that is really bothering you right now. Is it the fact that you are leaving everybody behind? Is it guilt? Is it the language? Is it fear of running out of money? Which one is it? That way I can give you even more tips on how to prepare for these fears and eventually overcome those fears. And after that, make sure you watch this next video right here. Until next time.